Howdy, folks. It's 4:14. It was 4:13 when I started this video. It's 1:21 in the morning, but you know what? I'm just so freaking enthused with what I'm seeing on the television and seeing in fantasy baseball that I'm just kind of wired for sound, and I'll be up for a while still. Okay, anyways, before I get off track, I want to go through three really quick things, but are important and gosh, please pay attention. Okay, number one, I'm going to go through the best free agents who are somehow still available in most leagues. Number two, I'm going to go through the LA Angels starting pitchers. And if you own one of those starting pitchers not named Shohei Ohtani, it is time to trade them. And then also, I'm going to talk about Ohtani and really go over his true value, because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how productive and important he is as an individual and how he is specifically not tradable. You cannot ever trade Shohei Ohtani because he is a cheat code, but I'm going to go through the specifics of why he's a cheat code. So first, let me share my screen so you can see what I'm seeing. Orlando Arcia is the number 5 ranked overall second baseman. He's hitting towards the bottom of the lineup with the Atlanta Braves. They score so many runs that he still gets just about the same amount of at-bats as other second basemen that hit towards the top of the order in any other lineup. He just fractured his wrist. If you know anything about Orlando Arcia, you probably know that Vaughn Grissom filled in for Albies last year for Atlanta for most of the season when Albies was out with a foot injury. Grissom hit 294 for the entire season. He's now hitting 367 in AAA. He didn't make the original opening day roster and win that shortstop job because he just wasn't as reliable from a glove perspective. And then Orlando came in and actually has done super well from a batting average perspective. But anyways, Vaughn Grissom is expected to get called up from AAA. We already know that the guy can hit. Atlanta's roster, all they do is hit. So if you need a guy, he's only eligible at second base right now, but he is going to play every day at shortstop for the foreseeable future. So it'll take 10 games for Vaughn Grissom to gain his shortstop eligibility. But if you are weak at the second base or shortstop position, this is a player that, you should probably think about making room for. I had him on my team last year, and he was plenty productive. Next, Jared Kelenic is on an absolute tear right now. If you just look at his most recent games, he has risen his batting average from originally what was down like the 100s again, started off super slow, and is now all the way up to, for a season average of 351 last week, he's hit almost 500. This is a player just 2 seasons ago who was ranked above Julio Rodriguez, his counterpart in the outfield in prospect rankings. He can do everything. He really is a 5-tool player. He's just never been able to put it together. So Jared Kelenic, in fact, he's only 21% owned. If you have an outfield player who's kind of slacking, or if you're able to add him sooner than later, would be good. James Outman, I talked about when he was 0.4% owned across all of fantasy. Now he is owned by 58.4% of fantasy owners across at least ESPN, and he just actually moved up to the number 6 spot in the order. He was at the 8 or the 8 and 9 to start off the season, but again, he is the everyday most trusted defensive center fielder they have on that LA Dodgers roster. I've talked about how all of the outfielders are 30 years old and older. James Outman being 25 and being a 94th percentile sprint speed. And as you can already see, he's been stealing some bases. He has multiple triples on the year, and he is in the top 25 in total bases for the season so far across all batters, regardless of position. So, the fact that he is only owned in 58.4% of leagues, being the number 3 overall center fielder in this position rank, does not mean that he's the third overall outfielder, left fielders, center fielders, and right fielders combined. It just means that he's the 3rd highest scoring center fielder because that is his primary position. But you can always use that to your advantage. You can say that I have James Outman. He's the 3rd best outfielder overall. And if they don't look at the overall scoring, they'll think that he is the 3rd highest when he's all in all actuality. I think he's just outside the top 10. But regardless, super duper productive player and is in that lineup for the long haul. They let Cody Bellinger go for a reason. It's because they had a guy to fill that they very much trust. Logan O'Hoppe, I've talked about since the beginning of the year. If you missed out on all of the blue chip catchers, I was saying to go for William Contreras anyways, and William Contreras is hitting for a super high batting average to start the year, but not a ton of total bases. The opposite with Logan Ohtani. Logan Ohtani has approximately 10 less at-bats than everybody he's surrounded by. He only has 35 at-bats in the season. Super young kid. He's supposed to catch as many games as he can physically, take in his rookie year with the Angels, a kid that came over from Philadelphia but was never going to play over JT Realmuto. So the fact that Logan Ohtani is smacking the ball to all fields, hitting over 250. This is a player, again, if you don't love your catcher, look to trade your catcher, grab Logan Ohtani off of the free agency pile if he's still available. I just think he's great. Jordan Walker, the fact that he's still available in this many leagues, 35% of leagues, only owned in 64.9% of leagues overall. Jordan Walker just broke the record for consecutive hits to begin an MLB career. This is just a no-brainer kind of thing. And the fact that he's gained outfield eligibility as well, pretty easy decision. Going down to Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder is a 24-year-old kid. I always thought that he looks older than he is, but he's 24 years old, had really good stats last season. This year he has continued that, has a 0 ERA, hasn't given up an earned run across 12 innings so far. He has had 13 strikeouts. What is very important and maybe most notable about Bryce Elder with the Atlanta Braves is that in his first outing on the 5th against St. Louis, he was allowed to only throw 79 pitches, but was efficient enough to get through 6 innings. Most recently, playing the Reds on the 10th of this week, he was left out there for 103 pitches. So this early in the year, just seeing that Bryce Elder is getting the ability to work an entire game and not getting pulled early, that gives you opportunity to win those bonus points from wins. And obviously, the longer that he's out there, the quicker that he'll figure things out, sort of thing. So Bryce Elder, good stats, obviously 12 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, more strikeouts than innings pitched. So his number we're going for, and a below 1.2 whip is always kind of what we're aiming for. But in this day of age with the amount of stealing stuff that's going on, anything above below 1 in general is incredible. So he fits those molds. And if we look back just last season, when Kyle Wright went 181 innings on the entire year for the Braves, same team, led the league in wins with 21 wins. They really just let him loose in his first really full season. So they 79 or 73, 69, 78-year-old Brian Snitker, their manager and ownership, they're a win now team. Everyone's spending so much money in their own division. They have the most talent. If Bryce Elder can take the innings, even though he's 24 years old, most thoughts are trying to protect these players from Tommy John and such. But it seems like the Braves are, again, got to get the most out of their guys when they can, because they're looking to win a World Series again this year. So Bryce Elder, no pitching restrictions. As long as he stays in that rotation, he should have a ton of run support and be super successful. And also Justin Steele, not going to have the same amount of run support, but a player that I drafted across all of my leagues because he last season he only won 120 innings or so, but had 10 more strikeouts than innings pitched, and had a pretty good low 3.2, 3.3 ERA. And he has continued that this season. So far, he is just 1 strikeout less than innings pitched, which is fine. It's early in the year, but 0.75 ERA to start the season in a home run friendly ballpark is really, really good to see for Justin Steele to begin the year. And he's only owned in 40% of leagues. So if you need a starting pitching help, I have him in all of my leagues. Really proud of him. Going to hold on to him. Do not drop him to the waiver Wolves. Next bit of people. Oh, I skipped one because there was at the bottom. I was finagling things. Oh, don't you freaking freeze on me. Okay. Next, I was going to talk about Taj Bradley. So unfortunately, another player that I own in every one of my leagues. Jeffrey Springs just went down with a ulnar neuritis, and itis. Anything with itis at the end means inflammation. So his nerve across his ulnar bone. I'm not even gonna act like I know all this stuff. I took anatomy however many years ago in college, my first med school level class, and it was fucking horrible. Anyways, Taj Bradley is the number 17 overall prospect in baseball, regardless of the team. Number 1 prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. He comes up to spot fill for Eflin, who just went on the IL. So he came up out of necessity. And then on just today, so a day after his first start, he goes 5 innings pitched and gets 8 strikeouts and a win. Jeffrey Springs goes down on the IL. So Taj Bradley is going to be in the lineup for the foreseeable future. He's really going to get a run in the big leagues. So if you need starting pitching help, that's a huge prospect. Did super well in his first inning up. The Rays are really, really good. They're the opposite of the Braves. Really good about protecting their starting pitchers. Bradley was able to get through this entire 5 innings pitched and 8 strikeouts in just a matter of 68 pitches or 78 pitches for the entire game. So he got pulled earlier even than necessary, and still had that level of production. So as a player, it seems like he's not going to be there for super long, but only owned in 10% of leagues at this point. So if you need starting pitching help, seems like a pretty easy investment. Pierce Johnson is the current closer for the Colorado Rockies. Obviously, hasn't had super awesome stats to start the year, but he's filling in as this role, so he's going to keep sitting in this position, even with a 7.71 ERA. But the thing is to understand, I have no idea how to judge this. Obviously, I'm not a behavioral health specialist of any kind, but the fact that Daniel Bard is completely healthy from a physical standpoint, but he has unfortunately went back to his way with the yips, something he can't control. It's anxiety driven. Daniel Bard had an incredible season last year. Was on the All-Star team, did all his story is incredible. If you don't know a lot about Daniel Bard, you should look it up. He had an MLB career, actually ended up quitting because he couldn't get over the yips of throwing the ball to home plate and controlling it. Quit baseball, came back to baseball as a coach, figured he'd start throwing with his players, and then, got to the point where he thought that maybe he could do it again, worked super hard to get back to this point, became an all-star. Daniel Bard is not a young person. And the fact that he had an all-star year last season with the Rockies, and now he's got back to this anxiety problem is really sad. But, it's a guy to root for and know that whenever he does come back, he just started throwing some bullpen sessions against live hitters just recently on the 11th. So, if he's able to get back onto the field, know that there's nothing wrong with him physically. But if he's able to mentally get himself onto the mound, this was a player who was an all-star last season, coming off of the IL with no, again, physical issues, and would immediately take over, ideally, Pierce Johnson's spot in that Rockies closer position. I already talked about Taj Bradley. I forgot that I had him on both sides. Andrew Chafin, one of my favorite players, just because he's hilarious and also super productive. Since I think 2018, no one has thrown more relief pitched innings than Andrew Chafin. And the fact that he's an easy guy to root for, it looks super funny on purpose, is a funny person, super duper productive every single year. He has incredible stats, and the fact that he's finally seems like he's earned his way into a closer position. He's a journeyman. He's been on the A's, the Cubs, the Tigers. Now he's on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The fact that he's earned now what seems like a closer role with the Diamondbacks, I couldn't be happier for him and excited as a baseball fan, but also know that this is 12.5% owned player who's plenty of productive and should be owned. His stats are great. And that will only continue. Super productive player, just kind of under talked about. And he's so silly and goofy that probably people don't take him super seriously. Mitch Keller was super high prospect, let's say at this point, 6 years ago with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and is finally coming into his own. The fact that he's always had a pretty decent ERA, around in the mid threes or so, with just not a lot of run support, which is why he hasn't been super relevant being on the Pirates. But the fact that he's still maintaining this 3.57 ERA. What's new is the strikeout ratios. The fact that he's going 17.2 innings so far this year with a whole 22 strikeouts, 5 more strikeouts in innings pitched so far. You can imagine how that ratio, if he's able to keep it up, just continues to separate throughout the year. If Mitch is able to keep this up, that's great. Obviously, he's played like some pretty good offense so far. Like Boston, obviously I don't think Boston's a super good offense, but they've been hot to start the year. And obviously Houston is Houston. Cincinnati, you see the background there, Cincinnati. But like Pittsburgh, very little run support. The fact that he, has done so well to start the year, I think that's very positive to look forward to. And again, like Mitch Keller, just keep him on your keep your eyeballs on him kind of thing. AJ Minter, the fact that he's still only 38% owned, he is the full-time Atlanta Braves closer, and you might just say to yourself, like, Arcia Iglesias is just on the IL. I've talked about before, the AJ Minter, being a 29-year-old individual, has played every single season with the Braves as their setup guy behind whatever guy who has been the closer so far. They traded for Arcia Iglesias from the Angels last year to be their setup guy. AJ Minter had more holds than anyone in baseball last season, had a a low 2s ERA, or maybe even a 1.2 ERA. They're getting those mixed up. One of the best relief pitchers overall in all of Major League Baseball as a high leverage guy last season. He's put his time in. They don't have any emotional attachment to Arcia Iglesias. You just like to think from from a relationship standpoint that they're going to give Minter the job, let him keep the job. And the fact that he so far this season, he's only earned 2 saves, but the Braves scored so many runs that they're usually they don't even have the opportunity to get a save because, again, they score so many runs. Anyways, AJ Minter, the fact he's only at 38% owned, I think it's a really good value. And on to Tanner Houck. Tanner Houck, big Tanner Houck guy. Other than the fact that he didn't take his vaccine last year and he lost his starting rotation spot because of that. But anyways, if you need relief pitcher eligible guys or primary guys to start for you, he's already that. He'll gain his starting pitcher eligibility during his next start, meaning tomorrow, meaning today, Friday, the 14th. He will gain his starting pitching eligibility, so it'll show as RP, and then SP has the secondary eligibility. Has good strikeout ratios, one behind, but throughout his career so far, lots of strikeouts. Gives up a decent amount of runs too, sort of figuring it out. But for a player who's only 26 years old, I think it's a good investment. 5.8% owned. Again, if you're in super deep leagues, I think this is a pretty safe investment, regardless of what his run support is going to be. In Boston, Jhoan Duran is one of the most, let's say, scariest bullpen people. AJ Minter is extremely efficient. Jhoan Duran strikes out. His strikeout rate is crazy. He's going to have, if he goes for 60 innings for the entire year, he's going to have over 100 strikeouts. His strikeout ratio is incredible. He's by far and away the most talented relief pitcher on this Minnesota Twins roster, who is going to very much, the way that they've been spending and the way that they've been trading, are looking to win the AL Central. They don't fear anyone in the AL Central, and honestly, they probably, should, whatever, but they're going for it. Jhoan Duran is their best player. Jorge Lopez very much was traded for last season at the deadline, but is their setup man. And there's a huge drop off in talent between those two guys. So the fact that, again, Duran only 46% owned, I think he's going to be one of the top closers in baseball by the end of this season. And the fact, again, he's available, that's wild. Alexis Diaz, he is also very, very incredible. He is the Diaz brother from the Mets, what is his name? Doesn't matter. Diaz brother that tore his ACL with Venezuela for the Mets. Alexis is his brother, the closer for the Reds, has very, very good stats. Obviously, he's averaging 2 strikeouts per innings pitched. He had one goofy inning just recently. He was expected to. So for this one inning that he had against Philadelphia, we played Philadelphia twice. I got confused. He went 1 inning pitched against their number 1, 2, and 3 in the lineup in the 8th inning and mowed them down one by one, 3 strikeouts, and then they just kept him out for the 9th inning too. Didn't get away from him. He's not used to throwing 30 pitches in an outing. You never want your relief pitchers to throw any more than 30 pitches, anything close to 30 pitches. And it's been a bad outing for a relief pitcher. So the fact that his ERA is blown up, it's from this one outing where he gave up any runs at all. And it was because they left him out too long. Because the Reds don't have any options in the bullpen. He is their only option. If they're going to win games, he is going to get the save opportunities. He is their best pitcher. So if you're desperate for a closer, this is a very, very good closer, very quality guy. It's just that the Reds aren't going to win a ton of games. But when they do, they're going to be close. Like I said before. Next, I want to talk about the LA Angels. So Los Angeles Angels, I've talked about before, are going to run a 6-man starting pitching rotation. They did this last year. This is expected anyways, but they finally brought up Griffin Canning. It was expected that he was going to go to the bullpen, but anyways, he's going to be a starting pitcher along with Ohtani, Sandoval, Anderson, Detmers, and Suarez. And I think this is an effort to keep Ohtani specifically healthy because, Tyler Anderson can take as many innings as you want, but if you look at the ages across these guys, very, very young pitchers. So, you want to limit their amount of innings, try to reduce the amount, the opportunity for Tommy John and those things. But the fact that they've brought Griffin Canning into the rotation and are going with 6 men now, that greatly reduces the value of the other starting pitchers that aren't named Shohei Ohtani. So if we go over to these pitchers, if you're not named Shohei Ohtani, Patrick Sandoval, incredible numbers, 11 innings pitched so far this year. The strikeouts obviously aren't there, but like throughout his entire career, even last season, had 10, 15 more strikeouts than innings pitched with a low 2-something ERA. Like, he's got a 1.64 ERA this year. Really good player. It's just that he's super young. They're trying to keep him healthy for the long run, which I can understand. But the fact that he is from now on going to be a part of 6-man rotation, he's very rarely going to be a double start. He can only double start at that point if he is a Monday starter and then maybe collects. They play a full week and plays on Sunday. So that kind of greatly reduces his productivity, and just the fact that he's going to be very productive. He's going to be very good, but quality per inning kind of thing, but he's not going to get anywhere close to 150 innings. They expect him to be around 120, a little over 120 again, which is frustrating because he's incredible. But again, they're trying to win for the long haul. So Tyler Anderson, who had a ton of innings, one of the most productive probably players in fantasy last year as a pitcher for the Dodgers, because he just had so many wins. He can throw 220 innings. They'll throw him for that because he's old enough. There's no issue for injury. But the fact that now he is only going to be pitching once per 6 days instead of 5 days. This is a player, again, Patrick Sandoval and Anderson are probably the only two that you own or that are owned. But if you're a Reed, Detmers, Canning, Suarez, or just those guys, I would try to trade them as quickly as possible because this is going to be their ceiling value. They're only going to be, just volume alone, their peers are going to start separating away from them. And it just tough to see, but that's just what you got to do. So work ahead of things so that you don't have to worry about that. And man, Shohei Ohtani, I actually got a message from one of you guys, one of the subscribers, and asked is Dylan Cease for one of my outfielders, Dylan Cease and one of my outfielders was being requested for Shohei Ohtani. I can't explain how valuable Shohei Ohtani is via text. So I wanted to really go through it with video. Shohei Ohtani is worth any combination of 2 players that anyone has on their fantasy baseball league or in their fantasy baseball roster. So if I go to this document, I reference this document all the time because I always want to make sure that I'm measuring players as an individual. How productive are they as an individual? Compared to their peers. So Shohei Ohtani as a batter. So I am going to specifically look to see, we've talked about total bases. Total bases is the measure of how individually productive player is from just hitting a baseball and seeing how many bases they can get around without stealing, without getting knocked around, anything, any sort of help. How individually productive are you? Total bases. And then once you're on the base paths, are you able to, be and differentiate yourself even more from your peers by stealing a base on your own, therefore putting yourself into position to earn maybe a run, like a bonus point like that, that you can't earn without help from your teammates. So I'm going to look at this tab that has total bases plus stolen bases. This is the true measure of how individually productive you were for the volume wise for the entire season. And Shohei Ohtani, 586 at bats, even while pitching once, every 6 days, is wild. But if I take out Fernando Tatis Jr., who I have here just as a projected total because he didn't play last season, Shohei Ohtani, that means that he is the 10th overall most productive batter as an individual in all of baseball last year. So just as a hitter, he was the number 10 overall bat. Incredible, right? Okay, so now let's look at his starting pitching, which I think maybe gets overlooked. And I for sure overlooked it. I focus more on him as a hitter than a starting pitcher. But if we look at Shohei Ohtani from a value perspective per innings pitched, last season they did let him go 166 innings pitched. If they had an off day, sometimes he would start over that 6th day. So he would stay on a regular regimen, 5 to 6 day regimen, and he would sometimes pitch instead of one of their back end guys. So they kept him on a pretty regular regimen. But the fact 166 innings pitched, 219 strikeouts per innings pitched, the only players in all of baseball that are more efficient and more productive than him per innings pitched were Christian Javier, Justin Verlander, Spencer Strider, and Jacob deGrom. Wild. That is why Shohei Ohtani is the number 1 overall draft pick by far and away, is going to score more points, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more points than anyone else in baseball. It's like having 2 top 10 players mushed into one. That's exactly what he is. So if I go to this next tab, let's go first over here. If Shohei Ohtani, just to his stats just last season, he was 492 and 493. So as a batter, he essentially hit 493, and as a pitcher, he went 492 or something like that. Grabbing the most available players that were similar to Shohei and their production, it's like mashing together Shohei Ohtani, or Kyle Tucker, and Aaron Nola into the same player. That is Shohei Ohtani. I can't stress this enough. You could not trade Shohei Ohtani. It is impossible to get the value back because he is 2 top 10 players only taking up 1 of your roster spots. So it's like gaining 3 people, because if I put Kyle Tucker and Aaron Nola on your roster and they score the same amount as Shohei Ohtani, you have to think about the other fill. So if Shohei Ohtani is worth 2 players, you get another player from free agency, ideally one that's super, productive. We always pick up good, productive free people off of free agency, adding roster flexibility and it's basically 3 people versus 2. It's like playing a football game. One side gets 11 people, and the other side gets 10. And there's just they're all toddlers, except one of them is a middle schooler and just that much better than everyone else around them. So that is the true value. You'll never, ever receive what you send away for Shohei. So understanding, if you have Shohei Ohtani, never trade him. But people don't really understand how valuable he is. And I didn't understand this until one of my subscribers said, some guy is offering me Shohei Ohtani for Dylan Cease, and I think Brian Reynolds. Make that deal every single time. Don't even think about it. The only bad thing is that you have to sort of live with yourself knowing that that guy just effed himself kind of thing. So if so what I did, I texted someone in my league. I respect him a lot. I love him with all my heart, but I sent him just a thought. I didn't ever really think to tell us all of you how valuable this person is. I just assumed that everyone understood. So all I did was say, hey man, just checking in with you. Haven't talked in a while. ballpark, if you had a dream trade for Shohei Ohtani, what would you want back for him? His response was Aaron Judge, Nestor Cortez, and one of my closers. And I was prepared to offer him. He is worth three of my players, whoever you want. I was literally going to, I was expecting him to say, he's untradeable. Like I can't separate from him. But the true value is I would have said, okay, leave me my first baseman because I need a first baseman to be eligible. But honest to God, take three of any player that you want. There's a lot of value on here. Take any three that you want. And that would have been a fair trade, if not always being in your favor, because it's two top 10 players in one. Like, it's impossible to put together anything that would be as valuable as Shohei Ohtani. And right now he's sitting on it. And the second that he says, like, I don't think so, I'm not going to like jump ship from him too early, I'm going to say, all right, pick a fourth player, take whoever you want, because no matter what, you are getting a top 10 hitter, a top 10. So a top 10 hitter, top 10 pitcher. I can't stress that enough. So that is the end of this video. Holy crap, dude. I don't even know what to say. Aaron Judge had one of the most productive season as a hitter in the AL last year, really, than anyone in the AL history, and he still scored almost 300 points less than Shohei Ohtani. Don't trade Shohei Ohtani. If anyone's willing to give you Shohei Ohtani, give them whatever they want. I'm telling you, it's worth it. So, anywho, that's the end of the show today, or at least the end of this episode. I will talk to you soon. All right, bye.